This is a special report from ABC News. New Orleans attack. I'm Chuck Sievertson. The FBI says the driver of the pickup truck in the overnight ramming and gunfire attack in New Orleans was not solely responsible for the attack. Identified by the FBI as a U.S. Army veteran, an American citizen from Texas, Shamsud Din Jabbar. ABC's Aaron Katursky.
We know that the FBI in Houston is at locations conducting interviews, trying to learn all they can about this individual. His military service does not indicate any specific combat training or training in explosives that could apply to what he did on Bourbon Street, but they're still going through that service record as well. It seems like something in his life happened that sent him down a different path.
Law enforcement sources tell ABC News they're also trying to find a number of people seen in surveillance images appearing to be with what are possible bombs ahead of the attack. This is ABC News. Mike Johnson facing a potentially contentious road to remain Speaker of the House after some members of his own party expressed frustration over his leadership. ABC's Nicole D'Antonio.
Congressman Chip Roy said he does not think Johnson has the necessary votes to remain Speaker, and it comes after a number of House Republicans grew frustrated with Johnson due to a bitter fight over spending that nearly caused a government shutdown before Christmas. Republican Congressman Thomas Massey already said he will not support Johnson, even after Johnson received an endorsement from President-elect Donald Trump.
Leadership vote scheduled for Friday. A new exhibit in Austin, Texas, hoping to raise awareness on gun violence while also honoring the 21 victims of the 2022 Uvalde mass school shooting. The exhibit is titled 77 Minutes in Their Shoes. It refers to how long the gunman was in Robb Elementary School before police confronted him and ended the massacre. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose, and millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50th.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Grosvenor.
All right. Hey, folks. Happy New Year to everybody out there. I'm Todd McKinley here in Northeast Tennessee, joined by my co-host, John Grosvenor, holding down the studio there in Nashua, and, of course, Colonel Chris Wyatt there in Central PA. Happy New Year to you guys. How's everything going?
Well, I guess I'll jump in. You didn't address which one of us you wanted to answer there.
Oh, so. No, sorry, Colonel.
That's okay. No, I think John's feeling a little under the weather anyway, so I figured it a good opportunity. I'm well, doing a lot better than folks on Bourbon Street or in Paradise, Nevada, which is actually an unincorporated town there in next to Las Vegas, where the Trump Hotel is. It's a tough start to the year for the United States. We're under assault.
Yep, absolutely. And what do you make of what went on down in New Orleans? I know a lot of people are just speculating. You see all the stuff on social media. You can't get a straight answer from a lot of people. And, of course, can you trust law enforcement? Can you trust the FBI?
No, you cannot trust the FBI. Local officials, an incompetent twit who came out immediately refuted what the mayor put out. And that should have been a conversation to happen ahead of time. The mayor announcing it was terrorism. I would normally criticize the mayor and revert to federal authorities, but it was federal authorities that knew better. In fact, we find out now, and this is something that the public shouldn't have known, but it's been public released, that federal officials and law enforcement and the intelligence community warned local police departments across the country to beware of vehicles used in just exactly this way for homicide and a terrorist attack over the holiday season. They were warned. That doesn't mean you can stop it. But my point here is that knowing that an FBI officer at the field office in New Orleans contradicted the mayor and caused some confusion, that idiot was quickly overruled by meritless Garland, of all people, actually admitting that they were looking into terrorism. What I make of this is it's clear terrorism. There's no doubt about it. This is what happens when you allow people in your country who refuse to accept your norms and are allowed to stay here at your expense, and they undermine your society. Now, that's not directed at Muslims, Jews, or Christians. It's directed at people who refuse to assimilate. Plenty of Muslims, plenty of Jews, plenty of Christians have assimilated and or contributed to our kaleidoscope that is American culture and our society and our polity. But here's the thing. It's clearly terrorism. I can see it from the very beginning. And we find out now that at least 2 improvised explosive devices were planted along the route that he drove, and they weren't planted by him. The officials say as many as 4 or 5 other individuals are currently being searched for that may be tied to this. This is a coordinated operation. Now, what happened in Las Vegas was interesting because the initial video I saw that came out literally within 60 seconds of it occurring, because one of my viewers, kind of keeps track of Twitter while I'm live and gives me updates if something breaks, and that broke within a minute of those videos going up. I watched that, but this was a video after the Tesla truck had already exploded and had some minor explosions following up after that. Was on fire outside the hotel. So my initial response was, gosh, look, another one of those. This could be another one of those batteries in these electric vehicles that blow up.
Right.
I need more information. Well, I got more information. I saw the surveillance video from the Trump Hotel. You can clearly see that this is an explosion. And fortunately, the vehicle is sturdy enough that it contained much of the blast. And the only fatality we know of at this hour is the person who blew the car up. And the odd thing is it appeared there was a bunch of fireworks stacked in the back of the vehicle, because after blew up, fireworks kept popping and going off everywhere. So, yeah, we are under assault on the 1st of January. That's a message. They picked a holiday and they picked a vulnerable site. A lot of Americans are whining and moaning about the Sugar Bowl being postponed. I think you need to shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what's going on. That's an active crime scene. You can't have 10,000, 40, 60,000 people wandering around there. And they're a target. They're an absolute target. I don't get how complacent people get. You and I, Todd, have been dealing with this forever. I grew up in the Army, so to speak, as an adult, a young man, and a professional dealing with the Red Army brigades, the Baader-Meinhof gang, the Red Brigades, November 17th, the Irish Republican Army, all of these terror groups that we dealt with in the 80s and 90s. And they predated that. They're going back to the 60s and 70s, but this is we weren't around then.
Right, right. No, of course not.
Yeah. My point here is that this is something that's been going on forever, and people collectively forget about it. I mean, how far do we have to be away from 9/11 to not take it seriously? Well, apparently it doesn't take 3 decades. We're already not taking 9/11 seriously. This is a concerted now. What I see now, and sorry to go for so long, but what I see now.
No, it's just good. It's a good answer.
In that news report there, they're talking about, well, what set him off? What set him off? It doesn't matter what set him off. It appears he's part of an orchestrated organization, a group that did this, or at least a few people. So it's not like the guy just one day snapped and said, I'm going to drive into Chris Kindlemark. This was a planned and orchestrated event. And the interesting thing that we've discovered the last couple hours is that both vehicles were rented using a informal app, Turo, which is rather than going to Avis or to Budget Rent-A-Car, you can get these kind of like, people renting out their apartments, and renting out their cars. And both were done on the same app. In fact, the owner of the truck that was destroyed in the attack in New Orleans already spoke to ABC News earlier this afternoon before the FBI shut him up and start their cover up.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like shut your mouth. You don't know nothing, and except what we tell you. Don't end up dead next week for getting your trash from your front of your house. You know what I mean? Oh, he fell over dead. He must have committed suicide. He was shot in the back of the head. The gun was nowhere to be seen. No. I just, what you have to say is that in case anyone's curious, I love life. I have no issues. There's nothing going on in my life. I'm not bankrupt. I have an adequate supply of money. I enjoy life. In fact, Hunter and I are getting together this weekend for Hookers and Blow. Right. Yeah. You should be protected at that point, right?
Yeah. No, look, it's this is pretty frightening stuff, Todd, in that we are so complacent. We take this so much for granted. I have long avoided these kind of crowds during holiday seasons because of my
course.
experience I've been very fortunate. I've nearly been taken out by terrorists on a couple of occasions, once in Europe and also in Africa. And good fortune the first time around, just, I was parked near where the bomb went off, but I departed about 15 minutes before the bomb exploded, the Frankfurt PX. And then in Africa, my countermeasures, my habit of not following a strict routine probably saved my life on a couple of occasions.
Oh yeah, you always have to, you serpentine your path. Never do the same thing twice, or never set a pattern where somebody that wants to grab you up. Can sit there and say he'll be here at this point or this time this afternoon, and they can grab you up. Yeah, good idea, good smart move. Obviously, you probably did training too. I'm sure, other than just the normal classes, probably some level of SEER training. I'm imagining.
Well, not SEER training, but yes, definitely some personal protective measure training.
Yeah.
Did some pretty cool stuff, with that. Actually, I did some training down at Fort Bragg once, which was really awesome because I went to a designated area for personal protection where you're at higher risk. I was fortunate. I was at that time, the training actually, in my view, wasn't really necessary, but the country was designated because it was a Middle Eastern country, even though it was relatively safe. But I was in much more dangerous situations and places after that. And fortunately, the training I'd had years before was helpful. So these are pretty cool stuff. And it's really good because we take so much for granted. We really take so much for granted. Yeah. And life is so precious. Some idiot can end your life very quickly. So thoughts and prayers out to the people who died in New Orleans, and thank goodness that no one was killed in Las Vegas. Listen, I'll tell you what, if the Las Vegas attack is simply the battery blowing up, which seems highly unlikely based on the video I saw, the second one, if it's just the battery blowing up, well, that's really bad news for Tesla because that means the company's going to sink. I mean, if you could sit in a car and it can explode like that when you put your foot on the brake pedal, life is over for the electric vehicle. I don't think that's what happened. I'm pretty certain here that what happened is we've got an active terror.
I'm looking at video right now, just snippets of video, and it's like it's stuff that you would normally never have together in a car. It looks like some accelerant and fireworks. It's like anybody who loves fireworks is not going to have gallons of gasoline sitting right next to it. That's not going to happen. It looks like there are accelerants in the vehicle for sure.
I got to tell you, why do people buy those Teslas? It looks hideous. I mean, it's not exactly a sexy vehicle. and now we know they don't make good car bombs. So now we know that. Well,
I shouldn't make that type of joke on this day, but no one was killed there. I mean, so But of course, they did it in front of the Trump hotel there, which was trying to send a message. I think Tesla, Trump, they tied that together, obviously. But
absolutely, I don't disagree.
Yeah, it didn't work out for them.
I've actually been to the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, and it's not really in Las Vegas. You won't know it if you're not from there, because it's in Paradise, but it's an unincorporated area which buttresses up right against Vegas. You literally walk a couple feet, you go from Las Vegas city limits, you're in Paradise. Yeah. And it's actually in Paradise. I'm guessing it's probably because the land was a little bit cheaper and the taxes, but it's off of the strip. So you've actually got to walk a ways or have a vehicle to get to there. And I did, because I just wanted to go by, this is years ago, I just wanted to go by the Trump Hotel since I was there long before the guy ran for president. So anyway, my goodness, it's a crazy day today. We should be celebrating the new year, and lots of people did all over the world. Once again in Sydney, Australia. My goodness. Unfortunately, they played the woke game where they did the indigenous flag nonsense, and they did a lot of things that torqued people off on the broadcast, the television, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation broadcast. But the fireworks themselves and the drones were unbelievable. This is the best one in the world. They proved it again. I heard they had like 5 tons of fireworks for that thing. That's what I heard. Wow, that's crazy.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. I'm just kind of scrolling through some articles here, and it looks like Fox News top CNN and MSNBC in viewership the entire year combined. So they doubled them up apparently. So that's good.
Well, that may very well be the case, but it certainly wasn't because of my viewership. Fox is just as captured the rest of them. I mean, I'll watch it when I have to watch something that's breaking, just because I have no option. But you can't trust them for a heartbeat. No. Yeah. So is John's mic on? Because it sounds like he's wandering around. I can hear it.
Yeah. Well, we had President Jimmy Carter died at 100. Obviously the oldest lived president. One of the most obscure persons to seek the presidency, 76. Out of nowhere, it's like Jimmy who is what they said. And Jimmy's running for what? Next thing you know, with the downfall of Nixon, and then of course the Ford pardoning, they kind of done him in and then paved the way for somebody who was nice, genteel, and kind of unknown to ride it into the White House.
Well, actually, Carter, you're correct. He was unknown outside of Georgia. He had been a Georgia Senate member and then the governor of Georgia, peanut farmer from Plains, Georgia, a devout Christian, Navy veteran, World War II. He was very well known in Georgia, but outside there. And the two things that really propelled him into office were the country was exhausted from Watergate, the country was exhausted from Vietnam,
Yeah.
and Nixon was the taint. And Ford ran for re-election, and he won the nomination barely. It was a very tightly contested race, and
Right.
I think that contributed to it. If Reagan had won that race, I think he would have beaten Carter, even despite the baggage, because he had nothing to do with Nixon. He came out of California, but
Right.
that race, the Republican Party colluded to ensure that Ford won that to their detriment, and we suffered through an unbelievably horrific 4 years of economic decline, political malaise, and our military just virtually on collapse, as well as our economic standing as a consequence of 73 and then the 79 oil crisis and embargoes when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan in 79. Our support for the Shah collapsed and the Middle East fell apart. And the Middle East has been a powder keg ever since the Carter administration. And while James Earl Carter Jr. deserves great credit for brokering an enduring peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, the Camp David Accords.
Right.
There's not been conflict between those two countries since the Yom Kippur War in 1973, and those things came about in 78. So he deserves all the credit in the world for that. But his negligence with the Shah of Iran and what happened there is directly responsible for the terrorism and global chaos we're seeing around the world today. Absolutely. And you exacerbate that with the foolish, naive, idiotic, moronic foreign policy of Barack Hussein Obama, who encouraged the Arab Spring, which has led to the deaths of over 1 million people in the Middle East. And then you put those two together and we have a disaster. And now we have these morons imported to the United Kingdom, to Germany, to France, to the United States, and blowing up and killing and murdering in our own countries. None of this would have happened had we had competent leadership in 1977 instead of James Earl Carter. That's all I got to say on the matter.
That makes sense, and I'd just say ditto. Yeah, the man, he's passed on, longest lived president. Now we only have Clinton from the 20th century that's still alive, early 21st century. And of course, he's not in the best health either. Now it's like the death watch of who's next. Is it going to be Clinton? It's probably going to be Biden, I'm thinking. Then it'll be Clinton after that, probably.
Yeah, Bill Clinton doesn't look too good. He really doesn't. He was recently in the hospital, admitted in the hospital a few days ago, and he's got some problems. Then, of course, we got George Bush, but George Bush is kind of a fitness fanatic.
Yeah.
And so he's doing pretty well, still out doing his bicycle thing with veterans each year. So Bush is probably a lot healthier. Of course, Joe Biden will never die because, evil things live forever. So.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. The new Congress should be sworn in, 2 days, right? I think it is the 3rd, I believe, right? Or is it the 2nd?
It's something like that. It's just around the corner.
It's either tomorrow or Friday, because they vote on the new speaker on Friday. So it'll be Thursday or Friday. I can't remember which day it's going to be.
Well, Johnson will get it because Trump endorsed him. Even the Freedom Caucus holdouts won't be able to stop it. They'll cave eventually. They'll probably get some kind of concession if they're obstinate. But Johnson will get it. And in the Senate, finally, the Crypt Keeper Jr., because Crypt Keeper Sr., of course, is his buddy from New York. But the Crypt Keeper Jr., Mitch McConnell, will no longer be the minority or majority leader. The majority leader will be John Thune. I'm not enthused about that, but I'm thrilled that it won't be McConnell and his ties to Chinese communists and Taiwanese commerce.
Yep, absolutely. And now, do you think that that President Trump's going to get his cabinet passed through or confirmed through the Senate fairly quickly, or is that going to be something that a few of them will take some time? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not. I think that the picks will go through, but I'm not sure how the Senate will play nice or not. I think that's important to see, and the first couple hearings will determine that. If they go smoothly, then most of this will just be pro forma. They'll just ask questions and they'll be approved. But we're not going to see what we used to see, where sides vote in a sign of unity for, dangerous people like, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg got no votes against her when she ran. It was like 97-0.
Yeah,
we're not going to see those times again, but hopefully we'll see 65-30 or something like that in the Senate. And I think most of the picks will go through. There'll be a couple controversial ones that are going to be difficult. I think that Tulsi Gabbard, for the Office of Director of National Intelligence, is going to be very difficult because she's viewed as a turncoat by the party that betrayed her. She didn't betray the Democratic Party. They betrayed her. But they view her as a turncoat, and the Democrats are going to stand on principle against her. And a lot of Republicans don't like her. I'm also one of those people that doesn't care for her. But I have no problem with her being in Trump's cabinet, but just not the right person for the intelligence. She's a civil affairs officer, And that's not the right field for her, in my view. So there's a much better pick for that. You could start with me for beginners.
Oh yeah, well yeah, several people. But that's one of those things, a position where I think somebody should have the kind of the background before you throw them in there, not just a political favor. Like, here you go, that you give them ambassador to Luxembourg, to a political favor. You know what I mean? Somebody donated money to your campaign or gave you that good endorsement. They're going to be ambassador somewhere for a couple of years. Not DNI. Sorry.
Well, I would say that I would agree with you. Being the director of national intelligence, you have to come out of the intelligence community. You can't be simply a political appointee who doesn't understand how intelligence community works, because most people have no clue. They think it's Jason. They think it's Jason Bourne, and you can solve all the answers.
Oh,
stupid. And they also have no idea the breadth and the size and the cost of our intelligence community and how it's in the Department of Energy. They don't even know that, and all across the government. Or the way that we have to collaborate in the Five Eyes community or collaborate with other partners and how we address things. So it really is necessary for someone to understand that in that position. Whereas the Attorney General, you don't even have to be an attorney, technically. You just have to be a leader. You don't have to be an expert in commerce. You can be put in charge of the Commerce Department, and you'll have people around you, and you just have to make good decisions. And you can learn what you need to learn in the crash course. But you can't do that in the intelligence community. You have to have a lot of experience in order to pull this off. Otherwise, you make dumb mistakes and you override your intelligence professionals, and you disregard critical intelligence analysis that could prevent crises from happening. So I think that's one that's going to be difficult. And then Pete Hegseth, I'm still not convinced he's going to go through smoothly, but I do believe that he will get the confirmation.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that one. And I equate it to, like, say, a good leader in the military. Like a good officer, a commander, a platoon leader, a platoon sergeant, whatever. You don't necessarily have to have done each position or each job, but you have to know what they do and know how to utilize those skill sets effectively. That's how you be a good leader. And I think, like you just described, Secretary of Commerce, you don't necessarily have to be some sort of mathematician to understand how to utilize people. But DNI, that's a very specific skill set that I think you need to have for sure.
And very few people have that skill set. It's kind of like, as a sub-Saharan Africa Foreign Area Officer, full colonel, speaking multiple languages, in my experience, the number of people who have the skill set that I have on the planet, you can count on two hands. Maybe four hands. Okay. I'll be generous. Four hands, maybe, but that's it. We're talking less than three figures of people on the entire planet who have that experience. Doesn't mean we're good or great or wonderful, but it just means that with that skill set, you have a very small pool from which to draw. And it's the same thing for ODNI. Whereas with other positions, you can draw talented individuals from all over. And I always make the example, and I've said this before in this program, when IBM needed a new CEO to replace John Akers, the company was in jeopardy. It was losing market share. It had over-relied on mainframes, and it was behind the PC market. It allowed itself to be hoodwinked by Bill Gates and his buddy there, Paul Allen, into licensing their crappy operating system, which became the de facto IBM standard, which was actually a Microsoft DOS. And so they were in serious jeopardy in 92 when they went out and they got Lou Gerstner. Now, I know about Lou Gerstner because I follow business, and I studied who he was at American Express, his vice president, his job at RJR at Nabisco. And I saw a leader who understood business and knew how to lead people, make critical decisions in a timely fashion, and had vision. And so a lot of people were freaking out. Oh, they're going to break the company up into 5 companies. It's the value is worth more than the one stock by separating. And I said, no, I'll take a bet on Lou Gerstner. Gerstner came in and turned IBM around. But the problem is that when he took over, all you heard were naysayers. Well, Gerstner doesn't know anything about computers. What does he know about computers? What is he? He can never lead an IT company. Well, he was one of the absolute best tech leaders in the history of the tech industry, hands down, barred none. And not only that, but he trained and mentored his successor. Sam Palmisano took over that company, and nothing missed a beat. It took off to even greater heights. So Lou Gerstner was in food and cigarettes. He was in banking, and he was in technology, and he was a stud in every one of those fields. And that's, it just takes a great leader sometimes. And Lou Gerstner was a great leader.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now looking at, let's see, where were we at here? I had a couple of things. Fox News was counting down some of the 6 biggest losers in 2024. Did you do a biggest losers list politically for any of your shows?
I did not, because I'm expecting most of the losers to come in 2025, like Keir Starmer in the United Kingdom, Emmanuel Macron in France, and Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa, among others. Possibly Putin, but certainly the grifter in chief, Volodymyr Zelensky's his clock is short and ticking.
I think so.
he'll be out of office before the end of the year or assassinated, one of the two. No, I didn't do one. I mean, the obvious biggest loser of 2024 was Kamala Harris. I mean, no doubt about it. Then, I guess you have to put Joe Biden right up there behind her. And then I would go with the media. The media was the biggest loser. So that's, if you're talking politically, I didn't make a list, but off the top of my head, that's the three that come to mind. And somewhere in there, I put Don Lemonhead.
Yeah. Oh, he is melted down. Like a lemon head, right?
Oh, my goodness. My goodness. That guy we need to get a bar of soap and wash his mouth out. Potty boy. Yeah. My goodness.
Yeah. How he was cussing people out on a Zoom meeting recently, apparently.
I have listened to that, and he doubled down on it after it was over and did it again. So, I mean, that's just a general, we could just, did you have a list or did you run with one or what?
No, that was kind of that's it. Of course the Democrat Party is in there. Of course, they're trying to rebrand themselves now. It's 2025, we're fighting the establishment, the Trump and all this stuff, back at it as if they're on the side of righteousness. People just made an error. We just made a couple mistakes. They're trying to say, oh, Kamala just wasn't the right fit at the moment. We were in dire straits, mea culpa, if you will. No, you're going to have to live with this for the next couple of decades. I'm sorry. You don't get to wipe it off in one year. Sorry.
No, but they're going to try. And this brief bromance with Trump will not last. It's already started. They're already attacking him. They're taking great glee out of the Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy nonsense about H-1B visas. And Trump has actually got called out correctly by a journalist. He said, hey, why'd you change your mind? Trump said, I never changed my mind. I've always believed in, we need high-skilled workers here. Sorry, that's what a politician does. That's two separate issues. Change your mind, and I've always been in favor of high-skilled workers. Well, that's a separate issue. You did in 2020, in October 2020, put out a press release from your campaign that you would reduce the number of H-1B visas in this country because too many foreign nationals were taking tech jobs from Americans. Now, I took great offense at the comments from Vivek Ramaswamy and from Elon Musk, particularly the one from Musk telling people basically, that the MAGA people are just jerks. I mean, my words, not his. They're jerks. They're idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. They're just a bunch of hicks racist. Now, that's not what he said, but that was implied. And that's unfortunate. Elon Musk blames America, and he says we can only survive by having people like him come here. Well, that is simply not true. If this country hadn't become so bigoted, racist, and misandric against white males, we would not be in the mess we're in. Now, this is not a white supremacy rant for people who are listening to it, want to believe in that. What I'm saying is if you go back to the 1950s, 80 to 90% of the people who were in engineering, technology, science, and math were men. That was unfair. That was the system we were in. That's how things work. The system was liberated from that. Others were allowed to participate in it. But white men have gone from being almost all the people in those fields to virtually nobody. For 25 years, we've heard the nonsense being spewed by the federal government, by state governments, by Department of Education, by educators, by professors, by people like Neil deGrasse Tyson about how women and girls aren't in STEM. We need to get women and girls in STEM. And then it was, we need to get minorities in STEM. Nobody's recruiting black kids to be in STEM. Well, yes, they are. NASA spends millions of dollars doing it every year, and they go to Compton.
Right.
They don't go to Southeast Ohio, to Appalachia to recruit white boys like me in science and encourage us. In fact, they put equal opportunity legislation in place that bans us from getting into schools and universities intentionally. We are discriminated against more than any group in America legally. We have been discriminated against. Affirmative action is discriminated against white males in particular for over 50 years. And what's the consequence of it? A dumbed down, less literate, less interested, less effective white male population. Now, why does that matter? Well, if white men represented just 3% of our population, it might be sad for white men, but it wouldn't be a tragedy for America. But when white men to this day represent 38% of our total population, this is a problem, ladies and gentlemen, a problem. When you are eliminating 38% of the population, all the stuff we've heard for 40 years about inclusiveness and how, the country would be stronger if women and minorities are brought into it, and I don't disagree with that, all of that is being ignored when it comes to white men. They're being discriminated against. They're being marginalized, being pushed aside. They're being told they're nobodies. And then when they say something, they're accused of white fragility. They're accused of being xenophobes or racist. It's not it at all, folks. When I can't get into medical school because it's reserved for someone of Asian origin or for a black student with lower scores than me, and then I wind up going and working at, Saks or something like that, in a retail job, that's a loss for the country. And that is what's been happening. We are not stronger because of diversity. We are ununited. We are disunified, and we are weaker because of the misandric attacks on white males. And that's the bottom line. And
Yep.
so that's what Elon Musk doesn't get. He just says, well, it's the culture, where they're all off their gats and they're, with the Grand Theft Auto and watching, garbage TV like Kardashians. Yes, that's a problem in society, but that is not why we have so few people in these industries. And by the way, why do we need more H-1B visas for the tech industry when the tech industry laid off and fired 50,000 tech workers in 2024? We got 50,000 people out there who are qualified to do these jobs. We don't need to import anybody else. And by the way, the vast majority of those people, Todd, were Americans that were laid off, not Indians, not Frenchmen, not Chinese, but Americans. And they want to bring more in to replace more American workers. And by the way, this is nonsense. If you look at the pay scale, those H-1B1 workers typically make 2 and 3 times the average salary of an American. An average American salary is $45,000 for median level or something like that. They're making $127,000 to $167,000 a year on average. And this is nonsense. Elon Musk may be brilliant, but he doesn't know everything. Vivek Ramaswamy may be incredibly clever, but he doesn't know everything. And they approach this from a very biased standpoint, from their worldview. They do not have the vision and ability to see beyond their shared experience of having come here as an immigrant or grown up as a child of immigrants who pushed him to excel. That's the bottom line. They don't have any other experience. And that's a short-sighted aspect of their personality and a flaw in their leadership ability. That's my view on it.
Right. Absolutely. It'd be like, retiring down to, say, some Central American place or some little small place where your money, makes you look like some sort of millionaire. You're showing up and you're telling them how horrible they are and how they don't know how to act. And this is why they're not successful, which isn't true. You just happen to be from a country where you were able to make a lot more money than them and showing up. And next thing you know, you don't want to tell them how to live. Kind of like that in a way. I'm thinking. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I've experienced this all over the world, places I lived. I had to learn how things were done locally. And even if it didn't comport with my white Anglo-Saxon work Protestant ethic and American, mores and cultures, I had to understand. So for instance, here's a good example. In Ethiopia, they make a huge deal out of the coffee ceremony. If you're not familiar with this, Ethiopians are absolutely in love with the origin of coffee coming from Ethiopia. And they make a big deal about making you a cup of coffee. It's a whole lengthy, drawn-out thing. It can take like 20 minutes to a half hour of your time. I want to get down to business. They want to make coffee. Well, I have to make allowances for that. And I can't come and tell them that this is stupid. You're wasting time. We've got to make a decision. So you've got to figure a way to come earlier or be able to make your decision later so you can deal with that. That's just a minor example. There's so many other examples of it. But what they're basically doing, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, never mind the fact that Vivek was born here and Elon was imported, but they're both acting as immigrants. They're coming from a standpoint that they've come into America and they're telling us that we're lazy because we watch the Kardashians. Okay. That is not even remotely close to the problem. It's one problem. We got a bigger problem when people get in disagreements and fight each other, beat each other up in an Arby's or a Wendy's, and then pull out a gat and shoot someone. I mean, that happened yesterday. It was public posted yesterday.
Right.
It's always a segment of society. Now, before the dog whistle, people are going to say, "Oh, that's racist." I'm not talking about black folks. I'm talking about a segment of society that's addicted to what I would call weak culture. Culture that glorifies nonsense, glorifies people that think that Ariana Grande is a hero. She's not. She's an idiot who licks donuts. She's a pop star, a pop musician. I remember in the 1990s when, Jordan was winning his 4th, 5th, and 6th championship in the NBA. I almost said WNBA in the NBA. And when he was doing that, and they kept calling him a hero. I'm like, why is he a hero? First off, this guy was just embroiled in a very nasty gambling thing where he was losing tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars betting on his golf and stuff like that.
Right.
Remember that? Yeah. So that's a bad example to be a hero. But I didn't hold that against Jordan. That was a personal foible. What I said was that he's not a hero. He's done nothing heroic. He's a sports icon. Al Kaline, sports icon. Joe DiMaggio, sports icon. They're not heroes. Randy Shugart and Gordon are heroes.
Gary Gordon. Yeah, absolutely.
Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart are heroes. They gave their lives to save the lives of others and was almost a total failure, except that, of course, Durant survived. The rest of them didn't make it. And they gave their lives, knowing for a fact, 4 times they asked permission to go in there, knowing they were going to certain death.
Yeah.
Those are heroes.
And didn't somebody say, and I don't know if I read this somewhere, that at the end there, I don't know if it was a Shugart or Gordon, I can't remember which one was killed the little second. He gave him the MP5. And he said, "What's going to happen?" He said, "It's going to hurt." And that's something like that. He said it's going to hurt, something like that. Then he ran off. I don't know if that's this story or not, but it's something like that. He said it's going to hurt, but he said, but you're going to survive, something like that. And it was like one of those moments, whether it's apocryphal or it actually happened, I don't know. But these guys were actually heroes.
Well, and in fact, we see the horrific aftermath of American bodies being dragged half naked through the streets of Mogadishu. That was them.
Yeah.
And others in that crew. And they so their heroic efforts and their bodies are just, they're just treated in such poor fashion. Look, there's something wrong with our culture and a society, but we're hardly alone. Vivek Ramaswamy comes from a country where rape is the norm.
Right.
Rape is horrific in India. And it comes from a country where millennia people have been downtrodden based on a caste that they were born into. Officially, there's no caste system in India, but hey, guess what? It still plays a role. And so you're going to preach to us about culture? I don't think so. You've got 1.6 billion people and your economy is only like the 15th largest in the world. Should be the largest in the world. So I don't want to be preached to by Vivek Ramaswamy. He's a brilliant guy, but he's a little bit off base. And yes, I know he's an American, but he's acting as if he's an immigrant. His parents are immigrants.
Right.
In the case of Elon Musk, he come from a country that's incredibly racist, a country that's incredibly broken, a country that is incredibly full of problems. And he grew up in an elite situation. And so I don't really care to be preached to by a guy about our broken culture when 12-year-olds are giving birth, not getting pregnant, giving birth all over the Eastern Cape. Got 43 babies born to kids under the age of 14 on Christmas Day around the country. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that means at 11 years old, somebody was molesting them. And that's a norm. That's not an oddity. That's a norm. So I really don't need to hear about our broken culture when you grew up there and didn't come here till you graduated from high school. And you're going to preach to us about our broken culture. The world has broken culture all over the place.
True.
Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk need to swallow a little bit of their ego and not insult the very people who put President Trump in office, because a couple 10,000 votes here in Wisconsin and Michigan, and he doesn't win those states. And you've just pissed off the people who vote for him. All right. That's what I've got to say. One of my viewers who's from South Africa, Francois van der Westhuizen, just said, well spoken, Chris. Thank you. And Francois didn't take that as an insult to South Africa, because some people would. It wasn't an insult to South Africa. It's not an insult to the world. It's a statement of fact. We've all got broken culture. And what I'm saying is that Musk and Ramaswamy have not identified what the issue is. All they've done is piss people off. And that is not a wise move. But because they're rich and arrogant, they think they can piss people off. And they should stop that right now.
Yep. And Musk, he, like you said, grew up in a time where he had privilege, and his family did have a little bit of means. Obviously, not where he's at now, but he did have some means. He didn't come here flat broke as an immigrant driving a taxi. He came here with a little bit of money in his pocket. Am I right about that?
Oh yeah, no, they were not poor. They weren't the wealthiest, but they weren't poor when they came here. He didn't grow up with a silver spoon, so to speak, like Trump did. But Trump turned that in. He took that wool and weaved it into a brilliant. I can't make a good metaphor here, but you get my point. He succeeded immensely with what he had. He took it so much further. And Elon Musk is a brilliant entrepreneur. He's a great leader, a smart guy. His libido is a little out of control, but that's a whole other story. I think we lost Todd. Now it's just me. John's in the studio. He's not feeling so well. Todd disappeared there. I'm telling you, man, they got gremlins there, John, in East Tennessee. I can't move there. There's no internet.
I guarantee you got a phone call or something.
Well, he's back. I think it's the internet, man. I think his internet sucks. Man, you got to get those hamsters and gerbils to move faster on the wheel, Todd. He's frozen again.
Jeez.
Anyway, does sweat. Yeah. Yeah, Danny says this is what we get while we try to comply our way out of tyranny. Well, you're right, Danny. We were too patient and tolerating of the nonsense around the world. And I'm not calling for a revolution. That's not my point. But my point here is that we just, people just accept things the way they are. We accepted from the outset as a society that affirmative action was good when it was morally bankrupt and racist. It never should have been allowed to happen.
Right.
That instead of giving people advantage based on their skin pigmentation, what they should have done is ensure people based on their means get a fair opportunity. That's how I got to go to university. We were desperately poor. When I applied, it didn't matter whether it was white, brown, or black, or blue. It was the family income for the family size at the time, and I qualified for a full financial ride, full free ride, and I got it. I got what became a Pell Grant. It wasn't a Pell Grant. They renamed it that year, a full student loan and a full state grant. And then I worked in the cafeteria and I went off to college. That was not based on my skin color. It was based on my financial circumstances, which the taxpayers did to level the playing field so that not just rich people could go to university. And I made the most of it. So that's what you should do. And to get into graduate school, I didn't get an advantage. It's like, the whole thing we talk about federal employment. If you and I apply for federal employment, we get like a 5 points veterans bonus or something like that.
Right. Yeah,
I disagree with that. I don't think we should get a leg up because we're veterans. That's unfair advantage, in my view. The best person should be hired for the job, in my view. And if you're the best person, you come at a disadvantage because someone's black or brown or Jewish or Muslim or Christian or an immigrant. That's not right. It's not right. Should all get a fair chance. Anyway, that's my view.
Right. Yeah. You're gonna start putting, all the different points. If you're this, you get this so many points. If you're this, you get this many points. 2, 3, 4. Next thing you know, you're gonna have people down at the bottom. You're gonna have a caste system like you just talked about.
Well, you're going to have people who are unqualified get the job because they have more points.
True. That too, yeah.
And we've had that for 50 years. Have you ever gone to the federal government in D.C.? Do you notice that a fair portion of them are from an underclass, from an ethnic group who aren't qualified to do their job? And many of those people that I've dealt with are very obstinate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They don't care if it gets done or whatever.
Exactly.
Pass on to somebody else.
You can't fire them. So,
right.
I had a PhD that worked for me at the Defense Intelligence Agency. I might have told the story here before. I'm not sure if I have, who had not produced a single intelligence report, despite the fact that she had worked at the Defense Intelligence Agency for over 3 years when I arrived. I was a major, and then I was given, control responsibility for her. She worked for me. And I was trying to encourage her to do intelligence reports, but she was useless. She had a PhD, and finally, I sat down, I carved out time because I was incredibly productive. I was producing multiple intelligence reports on a daily basis and all sorts of reports that were even for the President of the United States. So I was very busy, but I found some time, I carved out, and I sat with her. I said, listen, you have this country and that country and that country you're responsible for doing intelligence reporting on. Why don't you do a story on this? Well, I don't know anything about that. I said, well, that's why you have access to a library and you have access to databases. Do some research on it, learn about it. And I got this kind of eye rolling thing. Now, this is a person, mind you, this is 20 years ago now, was making almost $90,000 a year 20 years ago as a federal employee. Okay. Sorry, somebody just popped up in the chat. Parrot, it's not on my site, so I don't know where it's coming from.
So you got the eye roll. So obviously insubordinate, obviously don't want to do it, wants to escape or whatever. What happened at this point?
Well, I sat down and I gave her a topic. Man, it was a very simple topic. And we had something called nibs. They're not niblets like from eating corn. Nibs, notes in brief. It's just a short thing that has a paragraph or two. And what happens is that you take a news event and then you give 1 or 2 sentences of analysis. It's just, it's not a big event, but it's just something to keep the leadership informed. So I gave it to her, and she wrote a draft, and it was incomprehensible. So I made some edits on it. I gave it back to her. And then she came back to me and it still wasn't readable. So I went and I printed it out. I highlighted some issues and I sat down with her and I said, listen, here's the deal. And, not even talking about the analysis, which was useless. I'm just talking about the English grammar. So I said, for instance, this sentence, where's the verb? She pointed to an adverb.
Oh, God.
I said, that's not a verb. Yes, it is. I said, that's an adverb. Adverbs modify verbs, but you have to have a verb in order for that to function. So where's the verb? And she looked at me like I was from Mars. And then I went on with something else. I said, there's no object in the sentence. You have a subject, but you're not saying what the object is. How do I know what happened here? And she looked at me and she says, well, I'm insulted. I said, why are you insulted? Was I rude to you somehow? Well, I have a PhD from Howard. I'm like, well, I'll never send my kids to Howard University. I'll tell you that right now. I didn't say that. But anyway, the point is that person was making $80,000+ a year and doing nothing on the government payroll. Yes, hired for DEI. Yes, 25 years ago already. It was DEI, not for skills, not the best person for the job.
So how long did you have to endure this employee and what happened afterwards, if you know?
Employee was still there when I left. I went on and went back to Africa. So
okay. Interesting. So yeah,
I probably retired from the Defense Intelligence Agency, went into the private sector and said, oh, I'm an intelligence analyst. I worked at DIA for 20 years and got hired by some rubes who didn't know better, who read a CV, get the person and like, what the heck?
Yeah, they don't know what the hell they're doing. And it's like, oh man, well, we'll use them as a front man. We'll just put them out there for all the different photo ops we need. Look at us. We have this lady or whatever.
Exactly. No, it's a crazy world, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's sad that you can't get rid of people like that. And especially within the military, a civilian employee. And I remember dealing with, you get some of those GS folks, and it's like, oh, I'm this and I'm that. It's like, I've been here for so many years. I hadn't stepped whatever. And it's like, you can never get rid of them. And you have to be on top of them every day before you can even think about writing them up on the first thing. It's like you have to give them so many warnings or whatever. It's like, get out of here with that. If you were wearing a uniform, I wouldn't have to give you all these warnings. And come on.
Well, that's exactly the problem. I mean, you've got to actually, you've got to have competent people, no matter what you do. It's the bottom line. If you don't have competent people, then you've got a problem. And there's a problem out there when you have people that aren't competent. I mean, that sounds kind of redundant, but I mean, that's the point.
It almost sound like a Kamala sentence or something.
It did. It sounded like a Kamala sentence. That's for darn sure. But no, I mean, it's a real problem. I mean, this is why merit is the most important aspect. And of course, I'll accept the argument that merit can be debated. One person's rock star is not everyone else's rock star. For instance, I've had people work for me who are very unpleasant to work with personally, but they're very effective at what they do. So a lot of people would just dismiss them. I sucked it up and dealt with the fact that their personalities weren't particularly friendly, and it doesn't matter because the mission is more important. Yep.
Right. Yeah. The people that are always standoffish, or you don't know if you're going to get a snide remark or, some sort of, backhanded, retort to something that you say. So you're always just on eggshells with them.
Yeah. And you've also got this whole concept of, you got this entitlement aspect of things,
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Big time. And, you get some people that are always in trouble, but then you get some people that always bring race or, whatever it may be into it. And it's like, no, here's where you're actually screwing up, and it's like, I had one guy come in one day, and this is a simple mess up, but this guy was always in trouble. And he was like, oh, you're on because it's racism. And I'm like, here's how you've messed up. And then we've documented it. And I said, now I'm standing here right in front of you doing a uniform inspection. And I'm looking at the tie, and it's a silk shiny tie. I said, it's the right color. I'll give it to you. I said, but it's not the right tie. And he's like, oh, well, that's the only thing wrong with my uniform. He said, I was staying at my cousin's house and I couldn't find my tie. I'm like, and you see somehow that I should give you a pass. But if I don't, it's racism. Am I right? He's like, and it opened his eyes up. He's like, what? He's like, man, this guy had been a screw up soldier for the longest time. And I explained it to him kind of in those words. And he became one of the best soldiers after that. He just had that chip on his shoulder because of the way he grew up. With a lot of racist white people around him in a small town. And he kind of realized everybody's not racist. It's not all about race. It's kind of weird.
At some point, you have to realize you're the problem, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I had some, very exasperating experiences as a young soldier before I became an NCO. And it just drove me absolutely nuts. I mean, for instance, I don't know if I've told this story before, but we had our company reorganized in the 8th Signal Battalion of Kreuzberg, Germany. What happened was, we would come out to physical training, 6 o'clock is PT, you form up, you report in before the top of the hour, then they shoot the cannon, 6 a.m. and you got to salute, render honors. And then you separate and you go out and you do your physical training, and you do it by groups or by platoon or whatever it is. Anyway, we had people, it was wintertime too. We had people in the winter of 1985 who, we got new commanders and new first time, they couldn't bother to show up on time. They were coming late to formation. And so the answer was that they moved the arrival time back to 5:30. So you had to be there by 5:30, report into your sergeant, your squad leader. And so you could be accounted for. Now, this is the truly ridiculous part of this, because I had not moved off post yet. And what happened was, if you lived off post, you came in, reported, and that was it. They usually went back and sat in their cars, hung out, and took a nap or something like that. But they made us in the barracks get up and start cleaning the barracks,
right?
The common areas.
Yeah, I always hated that stuff.
So they made us get up and clean the barracks. But here's the thing: we had to clean the toilets and the ablution units. But guess what got used after PT? The toilets and ablution units. So it was a complete waste of time. It was just making us busy. Well, that sounds annoying, right? Well, they finally, instead of dealing with the miscreants and counseling them, they punished us. So what they did is they said, you know what? People aren't showing up at 5. Well, when we had to be there at 5 o'clock or 5:30, the supervisors had to be there at 5 o'clock. So the NCOs had to come in at 5 o'clock, and we had to be there at 5:30. Well, it wasn't working. So they made us be up at 5 o'clock and show up in formation, pre-formation, and the NCOs had to be in at 4:30. They're trying to send a message.
Right.
And the message was crappy. So I had to be up at 5 o'clock to go stand in formation outside my barracks, then walk back inside and clean the toilets and mop the floors and buff the floors. Totally ridiculous. Well, it didn't stop there. They actually moved it back, the first sergeant, to where we had to be up at 4:30 in the morning, and the NCOs had to be at 4 o'clock. And only then did the NCOs finally start doing their damn job and start counseling the people. But we, in the meantime, had to pay the price. And all the people off post came in, sat down in their car. So, I mean, that's the level of incompetence. And remember that I was dealing with an Army where many of my non-commissioned officers had joined the Army in the draft in the late 60s, early 70s. So this is the early 80s now.
Yeah.
And many of them were functionally illiterate. And they had no concept of leadership. All they knew was being told what to do or telling what people what to do. And that's as simple as that. And so that was just one aspect of so frustrating. So I learned so many things to do correctly by the stupidity of others. So anyway.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. You're like, why are we doing this? Yeah, it makes no sense. And whenever you become a leader, it's like, don't repeat that. And of course, now we have professional development schools for non-commissioned officers. Obviously, our education requirements coming into the military, minimum requirements at least, GT scores, et cetera, on your ASVABs. And of course, obviously, we have a lot of people that go on to get degrees and advanced degrees. So we have a fairly well-educated force now, which is a good thing. But now the thing is more of entitlement issues versus lack of intelligence at this point.
Well, the interesting thing about all this is that I have to give the U.S. Army credit. I can't speak of the other services because I was strictly Army at the time. I barely interact. The only time I interact with Air Force is when I went to the exchange to buy something. Over I go to Rye Mine or I go to Ramstein to buy something. That's the Air Force. But other than that, I never saw Air Force and never see any Navy Marines. So I only interact with the Army when I was enlisted at this stage. And I have to give the Army credit. In the mid-1980s, the early 1980s, the U.S. Army created the Basic Skills Education Program, BSEP. And this was bad for us because we were left unsupervised. Why were we left unsupervised? Because every single one of my NCOs was functionally illiterate. Every non-commissioned officer in our unit, except for the first sergeant, could not read and write properly and had no math skills. So the Army would take them 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if I recall correctly, and they'd be gone like half a day. They just go. They get a class. They get taught how to read and write, how to do math, things that I learned in high school in Appalachia, but they're learning it. But to their Army's credit, that was necessary because they had people who came in during the draft who didn't have the basic skills to function in society, and they were in leadership positions. And you can't just kick them out. That's not fair. No, so, it was a good program. And then, as you said, this is the time when the Army developed the basic non-commissioned officer education system, and they professionalized it, and we became much stronger as a consequence of it. Those were critical years for the United States Army, 1983 to 1990, when we went to the Gulf War. Those 7 years when we fielded the Black Hawk, we fielded the Apache, we fielded the M1 Abrams, and we fielded an improved, professionalized non-commissioned officer corps. That is when we became the premier fighting force on the planet. Prove me wrong. I challenge someone.
Right. Yeah. It's funny as we watch these documentaries about the lead up to, say, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and you had those guys that are with general officers who were young lieutenants back in the Vietnam era. They're like, man, some of the NCOs that we have that are still around, they were drafted and didn't want to be here and weren't educated. It's like, what's the force really look like? We're gonna know here in about a couple months and whether we got the right force or not. And they did the right thing between Vietnam and, of course, Desert Storm. Like you said, the educational system, et cetera, set us on the right path.
Well, we spent billions building that force, and we made an incredible force. Unfortunately, it's been ruined with the politicization of the military. In just 5 years, the force is denigrated to such a low level. And our arsenal's been stripped of our 155 ammunition. We're being stripped of our Patriot missiles and so many other resources we don't have now, courtesy of Joe Biden's proxy war in Ukraine. It's really sad. But it can be turned around, and it can be brought back to a competitive force. But in the meantime, while we've gone backwards, the Chinese have gone forwards, and they've closed the gap. I mean, now they're talking about being able to field their own 5G network that's impenetrable for up to 3 miles, 5 kilometers around a forest with 10,000 different objects, on the network. Wow. No degradation, 15 megabytes per second or 10 megabytes per second.
Yeah, that's amazing. Being able to talk, communicate, send intelligence reports. I mean, all sorts of things, enemy strength, all those things that you need to be able to react in a moment's notice. And that's critical to life and death. Those couple of seconds for somebody back in a talk making an intelligent decision, whether or not it's a threat or not. That's life or death right there. Wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely. It's pretty amazing. And now they fielded a brand new Navy ship here that's got a catapult to launch fixed wing aircraft. We are just treading water, going backwards. Our merchant marine is a disaster. It's a shambles. It was the world's best for decades. Our shipbuilding is almost completely gone. All we really build anymore is a few small pleasure boats. We've surrendered that to Norway and South Korea, and we build virtually none of our ships. Like everyone else, we have to get them from abroad. It's really a critical flaw in our society that we've allowed to happen because of corrupt political leadership that has allowed this situation to fester. We can't even build our stealth fighters without getting components from Taiwan and Japan. While they're friendly nations, that isn't always going to be the case, and it's foolhardy that we rely on that. Meanwhile, we've got idiots like Pocahontas there. Pocahontas, she's out there running around and she's complaining about NVIDIA having a monopoly in the artificial intelligence chip market. NVIDIA, sweetheart, is an American company. So if we have a monopoly, it's a global monopoly. If you don't like that, it's not because NVIDIA is cheating, because NVIDIA is having unfair business practices. It's because other people didn't invest in the marketplace. So we don't want to weaken NVIDIA so we can strengthen the Chinese. Stop being an idiot. Go back to lying about your Native American origins, which are non-existent, and get a fake paycheck from an Ivy League school, because that's where you belong. Get out of the Senate, Pocahontas.
Right. Yes. Somebody that supported a pay raise for Congress that they tried to slip in from $173,000 to $240,000. And I get you might need a COLA adjustment every now and then for some things here and there, but I'm sorry. I don't think the members of Congress are hurting for money. Not one member of Congress is hurting for anything.
Well, I'm happy to give members of Congress an adjustment, but I would call it an attitude adjustment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Not a cost of living adjustment.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we got a few days away from January 6th. And of course, to hear the words of Kamala Harris declaring that President Trump is in fact the winner of the presidency. And of course, she will no longer have a job in a few more days.
I am going to relish watching that. In fact, I'm probably going to live broadcast it when she has to certify the results of Donald Trump. It's going to be sweet justice. I also, when they do the perp walk and they put her in bracelets, if I can catch that live for Fannie Willis, I will do so. I'm looking forward to that.
Unburdened from what might have been. Thank you.
I think that Fannie Willis will be unburdened from liberty. That's what's going to happen to her.
That would be a good thing there for sure.
And I don't know if they can criminalize her boyfriend, Nathan Wade. I don't have any animus towards him, but I do towards her because of her fake case that she brought against Trump. And once again, I say the biggest dummy in the entire situation. Oh, you want to talk about big losers last year? Big losers? Jenna Ellis, the president's former personal attorney, who took a plea bargain for a non-existent crime for which no one else is going to be convicted.
Yeah. What an idiot.
Yeah, she is an idiot. Then she blamed, and she's a lawyer. She wasn't exactly 22, and she's risen to the president, and she's the president's attorney. And then she's like, I was misled by like Rudy Giuliani and these other lawyers. They're much more savvy than me. Really? If Rudy's so savvy, why is he in court all the time?
Right. Yeah. Defending himself. Yeah. All the time. But Rudy hasn't spent a day behind bars yet, though. He may know something that you don't know, though.
Yeah, no, my point is that Rudy couldn't possibly be misleading her into doing something that's wrong. She's just a coward, and she collapsed like it. That's what prosecutors can do. They can threaten you. She didn't have the money, to pay for the legal bills, and she just gave in. And then I don't mind her giving in. I would get that. I would understand that because of the circumstances she was in. But then she gave in, and she became part of the false narrative against Trump. Well, I was misled. Trump, they did this. They didn't do that. You're lying. You're lying under oath. Right. And, anyway, but look, Washington is full of rogues. I never expected Jenna Ellis to be one of them. I stood next to her at CPAC. We had a conversation, got a couple photos. She's really short, man. When I stand next to these people, I feel super tall. I feel like Bill Walton standing next to some of these people, except better looking.
Right. Yeah. And better knees, probably. Right.
Probably Bill Walton's knees. Oof, rough career, but what a great basketball player.
Absolutely. Yeah. Probably got a couple more minutes, John. John, how you feeling there, buddy?
Low, very low.
Low down.
Disappear a couple of times. Take care of matters.
Oh yeah, no problem.
We're right here, about 10 seconds away from the break, bro.
All right, perfect. We're looking forward to the second hour. We're going to get into probably a few more things and probably some 2025 New Year's resolutions from everybody and see what they want to accomplish this next year. I think there we go. We'll be back in a few minutes, folks, after these commercial identifications.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at wsmn.live.
ABC News. This is a special report. New Orleans attack. I'm Richard Cantu. 15 killed, more than 30 hurt in the pre-dawn New Year's Day truck attack on New Orleans' Bourbon Street.
We had just seen this one girl outside dancing when we were walking up, and not to be too graphic, but she was flattened. Like, this was a full-size F-150 4x4, and this girl didn't even look human.
Jimmy Cothran saw it all from the balcony of a nightclub. The driver, identified as Shamsun Din Jabbar, was killed in a gunfight with police. He was a U.S.-born military veteran.
His military service does not indicate any specific combat training or training in explosives that could apply to what he did on Bourbon Street, but they're still going through that service record as well. It seems like something in his life happened that sent him down a different path.
ABC's Aaron Katersky. This is ABC News. In Las Vegas, the FBI and local police are trying to determine if it was intentional, the explosion of a Tesla Cybertruck outside the Trump Hotel.
Urgently looking at burned remains of the 2024 Tesla Cybertruck, local and federal investigators are trying to answer why the truck exploded. Las Vegas Sheriff Kevin McMahill.
We saw that smoke start showing from the vehicle, and then a large explosion from the truck occurs.
He says 7 bystanders have minor injuries. A driver of the truck died. It appears the driver had fireworks-style mortars in the truck. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Had he lived, former President Carter would have had a shot at being the oldest living Grammy winner. His Last Sunday in Plains audiobook is up for a Grammy next month. Carter was 100 when he died. The oldest Grammy winner who was alive at the time of winning was Pine Top Perkins, who was 97 when he won the Traditional Blues Album Grammy in 2011. Richard Cantu.
This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
When it comes to my lifestyle and diet, I don't always make the smartest choices.
Touchdown! Woo! Hey, how about another round and some more chips?
But when it comes to taking care of my liver, I do make one very smart choice. Active liver tablets from New Nordic. I used to have real issues with my liver, and at my last checkup, my doc was concerned about my numbers. But since adding a once-a-day active liver tablet, my gut's better, I feel great, and my doctor's happy. I ask a lot of my liver. So the least I can do to say thanks is a daily dose of Active Liver.
You ask a lot of your liver, so give it the support it needs with Active Liver. You can find Active Liver at Amazon.com, or for a volume discount, visit NewNordicUSA.com. Go to new, NORDICUSA.com, Amazon, or ask for Active Liver at your local CVS. New year, new you. New Nordic.
Spend time where it matters most with loved ones, not worrying about hidden fees. At Campers Inn RV, we offer honest pricing with all freight and prep fees at our cost. No markups ever. While competitors inflate their fees up to 3 times, we believe in fair, transparent pricing that lets you focus on holiday joy. With RVs starting at just $13,995, there are no surprises, only affordable adventures waiting to happen. This season, celebrate your way at Campers Inn RV.
All right, hello, folks. We're back here with the Common Sense Conservatives on WSN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. I'm Todd McKinley in Northeast Tennessee, joined by my co-host, Colonel Chris White, who'll be back here in just a second, and John Grosvenor holding down the studio there in Nashua, New Hampshire. That commercial cut off kind of abruptly there, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I was like, oh, wait a minute, we're back. I was like, okay.
Sorry, I didn't give you much warning on that. The last one was about a minute long, and it's just not.
Oh, no problem. Yeah,
it'll put you to sleep. So I'm like, no, we're not doing that one.
That's all right. That's all right. Good stuff. So yeah, New Year's resolutions. Anything in particular you guys are looking to focus on maybe this next year?
Wow. I don't make New Year's resolutions. I'm one of those people that doesn't believe in that. It's about 1/3 of the population. I don't. It's just a day when the Earth rotates around the sun, so it doesn't hold any special significance for me. Which is a date that we artificially created a calendar based on the moon and the stars and the sun. So right. It doesn't. It's if I'm going to make a resolution, it's going to be at any time of the year. And I suppose what I'm hoping for in 2025 is maybe to catch fire and, and stop being shadow banned and people actually see my content. It's incredibly frustrating. I just keep seeing media outlets and people who don't know what they're talking about latch on to stories that I've reported on or I've told people about a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance. And then I predict it's going to happen. And then as it unfolds, people start doing it. Like, for instance, I saw this video on a news channel on YouTube today, had 204,000 views. And what they've done is they've said that the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, South Africa is in jeopardy of losing their status under the Trump administration. Well, I've been saying that for ages, and I've been saying since 2020 when I started broadcasting on this stuff that, and I've said privately before that South Africa has made its participation illegitimate because they've broken the standards and they're going to pay a price for this eventually. And it's just one example of that, 204,000 views. I did a video on the same topic. I had 2,000 views. It's just a little frustrating. So I'm hoping that maybe catch fire somewhere. I mean, if someone wants to get me on the Joe Rogan show, that'll do it, or something like that. That's all it'll take. Short of that, a phone call from the Trumpster asking me to be the Undersecretary of Defense for this or that or the other, I'd be happy to do that. But no, I will probably spend 2025 focused on my personal health and fitness and do some more writing and maybe do some saving.
That's a good.
Maybe if prices come down, that'll help, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay. Well, what kind of sailing are you talking about? What are you looking at? Actually,
what?
cruise? You said sailing, right? Like
No,
selling
I
a
didn't say
ship
selling.
Oh, I thought you said selling. I don't know where I heard that.
No.
So.
No, that's not what I said.
What'd you say? Come on.
I don't recall what it was.
If prices come down, I don't know why I heard
saving.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, there was a car in the background. I think I heard on John and I heard sailing. Sorry. That's my fault.
When I think of sailing, I think of Christopher Cross. Sailing takes me away to where I want to be.
Yeah, great song.
What a great voice. And then he lost all the weight and he wasn't the same performer.
Right. Yeah, he tried to. Yeah, but that's a good song. But yeah, I thought you said sailing, and I'm like, I don't take you for somebody who actually goes on the cruise ship.
No. Water is for getting food and bathing. I see no recreational purposes to water whatsoever. I've tried water skiing. I don't like it. I've swam. I don't like it. I've done fishing in the ocean. I don't like it. Water is not a natural place for Homo sapien to be. I'm like a cat. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I think sailing looks like a lot of fun, but never got involved with it. Did a lot of surfing growing up in Florida, though.
I can see that, but surfing, I never really tried surfing. That's the one thing I haven't done. But I just look. I mean, I'm unusual in that respect. But I would, people want to go live on the beach where it's hot and humid and there's bugs and and tsunamis. I'd rather live in the mountains where there's trees and fresh air and wildlife and hiking trails and creeks and streams and waterfalls. And, that's my cup of tea. I'd much rather do that. So, and then, in the wintertime, we turn that into ski slopes, and then you can also turn into snowmobiling and stuff like that, and dog sledding. It's kind of cool, and ice hockey. So that's my cup of tea. I'll take that in a heartbeat.
You get all the hiking you want to do in Florida. They got all sorts of hiking trails, or you can make your own. You will be on your toes with all the poisonous snakes and spiders and.
Yeah, but I mean, the highest point of elevation is a landfill in Florida, John.
Oh, come on. We got the rolling hills and the panhandle.
That doesn't count. That's lower Alabama.
You got to know Florida to enjoy Florida, man. The springs are beautiful. If you know Florida, you really get something out of it. But you're right. It is flat. Having lived up here in New Hampshire for so long, anytime I go back to Florida, I'm like, I need some terrain.
Yeah, exactly.
I grew up on the East Coast, I right there on the Atlantic. So.
And quite frankly, I mean, is there any other than the hills in the lower Alabama region of Florida? Is there any part of Florida that's not simply a sandbar that, with the other 3 feet of water, would simply be underwater?
Yeah. Well, you go to Key West and you see a sign that says End Highway US 1, and you're sitting about 3 to 6 inches above sea level.
Exactly. Exactly. So look, I'm not dissing on Florida, but it doesn't hold any appeal to me. Neither does Southern California. I love Northern California. Unfortunately, the politics are broken, but it didn't used to be that way. But I love Northern California, but I have no use for Southern California. And look, that's not a dig on LA. San Diego's an amazing place, but there's just too many people there for me, and too many people ruined it. And it's just not my cup of tea. Give me Idaho. Give me it used to be Colorado, but they've ruined that. Give me Wyoming. Give me Utah. Take it in a heartbeat. Heck, I'd even take West Virginia.
West Virginia is nice.
Oh, absolutely.
Coming out of West Virginia into North Carolina there in Fancy Gap is a nice descent. You're like really up in the sky. And when you're coming down there, you're seeing a view.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, West Virginia is a lovely place. I mean, it's some of the better parts of the Appalachian Mountains are in West Virginia. A lot of people don't realize that. It's an amazing place. But West Virginia has always had this bad kind of reputation as being a bunch of hicks when it's actually quite a sophisticated place. So anyway,
I did say West Virginia, but that part is actually part of Virginia, coming out of West Virginia. But just for clarity.
No, that's all right.
For those that know better and think I'm an idiot.
Virginia used to be a lovely state too, until the growth of Loudoun County and Fairfax County ruined it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Northern Virginia with the influx of people from other countries, especially, have actually ruined the politics of Virginia for forever at this point.
Well, the haven of government apparatchiks making six-figure salaries and getting the DC differential, bumping them up to make them incredibly wealthy, with many of them doing nothing, living in, of course, Northern Virginia and, of course, the bedroom communities of Maryland and Howard, Montgomery, and PG, Prince George's County, driving up the cost of housing for regular folks in their guaranteed government jobs and not really caring, clogging the highways. Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate mail from those folks now.
Right. Yeah. I was watching The Big Short was on television earlier. I was watching it, having a little bit of lunch, and I was thinking back to when I was living in DC and the number of people that I knew that were, the same rank as me, and they had been up there longer, so they've been multiple homes. And I'm like, how are you doing this? And of course, with the COLA, with the BAH and all this stuff, and with the guaranteed loans that they were throwing out there at people, they're buying 2 and 3 homes, and of course, flipping them every couple of years, making $150,000 profit. And of course, when they retire, they throw an extra $500,000 on top of the retirement. But they got out just at the right time. A few of those people, but some people lost their shirt for sure.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of that took place too. And of course, there's a lot of artificial growth. DC's housing market grew, DC's economy grew in Northern Virginia, not because of prosperity or economic development, but because of money, awash from federal money. That's what it was. Yeah. So that money just pouring out of the federal government in the form of jobs and grants and businesses and stuff like that. It's not like someone created a new widget. That's what I'm all in favor of. And that used to be California. It used to be somebody created a new widget or the new Apple or the new iPod or the new tablet or the new this or new that, new artificial intelligence. But California is dying on the vine too. It's sad. It's the world's 6th largest economy by itself. And quite frankly, right now, I'm in favor of dynamiting the San Andreas Fault and then just setting it off and letting California drift out to the Pacific. And we'll turn Arizona and Utah into beachfront property and increase the value of those states by billions.
Right. Well, wasn't that Lex Luthor and one of the Superman? I think it was Superman 2 or one of the Superman, maybe 4. I can't. Superman 4, yeah, Quest for Peace with the nukes. Lex Luthor's idea was to blow up the San Andreas Fault.
Was it really? So it's not even my idea. I thought it was an original idea.
So you could be Lex Luthor instead of an undersecretary. You could just be the greatest criminal mind of all time.
Look at that. Here, see, that just goes to show you it doesn't matter. When you think of a great idea, someone came up with it before you. They just didn't implement it.
No, that's true. Yeah, but Superman foiled it because he could go back in time.
I'd look.
He was up here listening to Chris, and then he went back into time.
That's what it was. He stole my idea from tonight
He
and went
stole
back.
it. He went back. I love it.
No, the only one I ever saw was the first one with Christopher Reeve. That's the one I remember. That was actually not bad. I tried watching the second one, but it wasn't unwatchable. So.
Yeah, they filmed them at the 1 and 2 at the same time, but the way they crammed them in there, the second one, suffered, I think.
Well, that's a tragic life. Christopher Reeve, who was an equestrian and got injured in this horse, and and then spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair and died prematurely. Sad story there. Yeah.
Quadriplegics do not live so long.
Well, yeah, because you can't exercise your heart and your circulatory system and your sinews and joints properly, so you're just kind of wasting away. It's sad.
Yeah.
Well, it must be a pretty depressing lifestyle. Mentally, it just can't be healthy. Anybody out there listening, sorry if this is offensive.
No, but listen, people have the strength of character to overcome this. I mean, look at Stephen Hawking. I mean, he couldn't even communicate till they gave him a computer, and then he had, like as Sheldon Cooper said, that really cool voice.
Right.
Hello, Sheldon.
Hello, Dr. Sheldon Cooper.
Yeah, no, it's I love that. Hello, was it Dr. Cooper, Dr. Hofstadter, Mr. Wallowitz.
Yeah, not a Dr. Howler Wallowitz.
Hey, I have a master's degree. Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Because in order to have a PhD, you had to have a master's degree, and so that's great. Dr. Hofstadter, Dr. Cooper, Mr. Wallowitz.
I did like at the end whenever he was giving his Nobel Prize speech, and he goes, "Astronaut Howard Wolowitz." So that was a great little tip of the hat.
Yep, no doubt about it. I'll tell you, boy. What a great show. That's I missed that. I missed that. But you know what? It went at the right time. If it had lingered any longer, it would have just, gone down. I mean, you can only keep it fresh for so long. So I miss it, but it's a classic and I can go back and watch it. And unlike Friends, I think that that's going to stand the test of time much better. Friends was fresh for a while, but now you go back and look at it, it's like, it's some of the shows are entertaining, but a lot of it's just like, oh, come on, this is just saccharine comedy. Whereas I think The Big Bang Theory, because of its edgy nerd science angle, is always going to be just really good stuff. But then I'm biased. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, well, you had the video game culture, you had the comic book culture. Marvel and DC was blowing up during that time, and it was the show at the right time to be able to capitalize on it, I think.
No, I think you're right. All that stuff is really the whole Marvel universe nonsense that's been going on. It's been a big deal. So anyway.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So now I've got a question for you here. Now this is something that's been talked about on Fox News, MSNBC, Newsmax is covering it. How long does President Trump have to kind of start to implement his agenda before people can start to kind of like, hey, what gives here? You know what I mean? Start really getting upset that he's not delivering. How much time do you think he has?
How much time do I think he has? I think the first part of that sentence, how much time does he have to implement his agenda? About 30 seconds, and he can start it by signing executive orders, rescinding all the garbage that Biden's been doing. But before he gets a pushback, is that what you were asking? Sorry, there was a chat.
Yeah. So some pushback, like, usually you get the first 100 days. I'm hearing like, different timeline, like 6 months to see movement on the border, 100 days to start implementing some things within the, making changes in the FBI, changes in the Justice Department, a few things like that. He has like a timeline to start implementing certain things. And like, at what point do we have to say, hey, you're not delivering? You know what I mean? There's a time that we have to start calling them out and saying, hey, you promised all these things. What gives? You're not delivering.
So,
that's basically the timeline on that, if you will.
I think we're already seeing some results from Donald Trump being active already.
I agree with you.
It's happening. But to your point, I have a feeling, once inauguration day happens and they have their balls and all the good stuff happens, I'm sure them executive orders are right now already written, and they're waiting, and we'll see some activity right away. As soon as he's sworn in, we'll probably see some swift activity, but I'm sure there's concerns about some things that are going to take a while to implement, as far as turning the economy around. And
deportation, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you got people now with deportation working on locations and stuff, such as detention center in Texas.
Right.
Well, not just that, but Trump's threats of tariffs on Mexico and Canada have already had an impact. Mexico is building detention centers south of the border to take the people that are going to be sent back across. That's incredible, So they've got in line. They ran their mouth. Claudia Sheinbaum, and then the next thing you know, she's building detention centers. And Justin Trudeau, Governor Trudeau, well, okay, now we're spending 1.3 billion Canadian on sniffer dogs and drones and new border guards, so they're doing it too. And I think you're going to see a lot of that. But I think the question really here is that how long before the media turns on Trump, like they have been doing for 8 years? I don't think it'll take long. I think it's already underway. Certain people are trying. Don Lemonhead is trying, and the others who are trying with this so-called split in the MAGA universe, the MAGAverse between Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. That's all they're trying to feel it out to see where the weak spots are, and they can go after Trump, but by injuring his ego by saying he's not in charge and Elon Musk is in charge.
Right. Yeah.
Trying to cause division. The people in the Trump administration need to ignore that. One very positive sign I did see is that the chief of staff has said no social media without prior approval. Thank goodness. Now, and if they fire people for breaking that, that's good. But right now they're trying to keep a tight lid and control so that we don't get any stupid stuff on social media. And quite frankly, I think what they need to do with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy is put a rag in their mouth and tape it over their face until after January 20th. And then we'll all be better off. Just saying.
Yep. I think
he's not a fan.
No, I think what he's talking about is that there's so many different people that are spewing information, and it's like, which water hose do we drink from? Basically, that's kind of what he's saying, I believe.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened. You get a lot of people who have they're all bosses, right?
Right.
And so now they don't want to take some leadership role, some sort of charge, and they start overstepping their bounds and talking for the administration.
Right. Yeah, type A alpha, personalities that don't want to take a back seat. It's like, it's my show every time, no matter what it is, even if I'm supposed to be the subordinate. People like that have a hard time actually taking a step back and being the subordinate.
What do you mean? Is that directed at me?
Right, yeah. I'm in charge. What do we do?
Now that it's I say that kind of tongue in cheek because I recently had a couple people, the veterans organization, tell me, well, the problem is, you're kind of hard. You're hard to approach. You're hard to talk to. I'm like, what? Well, yeah, because you're a colonel and you act like a colonel. I'm like, well, how does a colonel act? In charge. I'm like,
in charge. Well,
you're used to taking a leadership position, and that's what you do, and they don't like it.
I'm sorry. Would you prefer they go, okay, could Mikey, what do you have to share? Okay, hang on, let's get some scones and discuss this for a couple hours.
Yeah, let's get the new lieutenant who just arrived. What do you think we should be doing?
Have to backstep a little bit with these guys, plant the seeds of ideas, let them think they're their ideas, have a discussion about it, and say, "Oh, I'm glad we all agree."
Well, see, it's funny you should mention that, John. Some of the greatest successes I've had in life have been when I had an idea or a vision, and I ran into an institution of leaders who were inflexible. And the way I won the battle is that I introduce a topic in a way that they think it's their idea or they can take credit for it, and suddenly it gets implemented. So you don't get all the credit, but that's fine. You do the bigger thing. You accomplish the mission. That's the problem with humans. We've got egos, we've got bias, we've got bigotry, we've got personality quirks, you just got to learn to deal with that with people. But I found it just comical to hear someone tell me that. This is a veteran who was an NCO when he got out. Well, people are afraid to talk to you. I'm like, why are people afraid to talk to me? I talk to the guests at the VFW all the time. I speak to virtually every employee. I walk up to them, I talk to them personally and privately, ask them about their concerns and, how we can make the place better, what we can do. And I've never had a single employee who has been hesitant to complain about something when I ask to talk to them, and especially in private. So I don't get that. You can't be talked to nonsense. I think people project their own insecurities on other people,
There, I was going to say, some people feel threatened by you because you have such a great deal of confidence when you speak. You have that strong confidence.
All right, come on, John. Let's put our cards on the table. It's not that. It's the fact that I'm devastatingly handsome. It just puts them off.
I'm sure there's some. No ego here. By the way.
I've got that Kenny Rogers look going right now since I shortened my beard up.
Yeah, well, I seen that beard is just ebbing back a bit. Pretty soon you'll be looking like Todd with just a little stubble.
No, he's gonna have a goatee the next time we talk to him. Perhaps
he's gonna kick you out the.
That's right. Well, next week I'll be coming on and I'll be debuting my world premiere of Islands in the Stream. Dolly and I will be doing it. Yeah, that is what we are, Islands in the Stream.
Hey, Mona Beto, how you doing? Happy New Year to you too.
I don't. Do you know who that is? Or is that just?
I know her.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So
John, okay.
Yeah. So John, what are your goals for 2025? I don't know if you jumped in and asked or answered.
I'm actually in complete and total concurrence with Chris. I don't do resolutions. I don't do these New Year's things. In fact, I was asleep by 9-10 o'clock last night and just waking up to yet another day. To me, I understand people want the hope, and it's a nice holiday for them. And it gives them a good excuse to go out and have a few drinks and enjoy the companionship of fellow people. And that's great. Right. I don't begrudge anybody any of that. But to me, life is supposed to be a perpetual activity of self-improvement, right? Every day you should be self-evaluating and making resolutions. And in fact, that's what the Dunning-Kruger effect is based upon, is that people fail to evaluate their skills, fail to evaluate their talents, and they get themselves in over the head with jobs and activities that they involve themselves into. And when the proverbial crap hits the fan, they don't know what to do, like COVID, right? Nobody knew what to do because, as Chris said, we're not getting the best of people running our government. These people are way in over their heads, and they don't self-evaluate. They don't work at perfecting their skills or their crafts, and then they get stuck. And then have to backtrack.
You get people who are not honest with each other. They don't reflect on their shortcomings. Look, I've spent a lot of time considering how I can improve the quality of my production level for my videos, and the content. I do a lot of time of that, and I'm never satisfied that it's actually good. Actually, I did a video earlier today. It's been a long day for me, guys. I mean, waking up with this New Orleans thing that filled my day up. Then in the middle of my broadcast, This morning we got the bomb exploding, or the Tesla exploding out there in Las Vegas, and then I already had some production I had to do that I was a couple days behind on things in South Africa. And so basically I started from the moment I got up this morning and did a broadcast and then did video production before and after that, and was still doing it just before this program. I just did another one about a summary about New Orleans, loaded that up my channel. And I did a video on South Africa, and I was actually a little bit proud of myself because I tried some new ways to make it better, to improve it. It's like an instrument. You're always improving your position.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so if you're not humble enough to realize that you're not perfect, then you're never going to improve, And so I'm always trying to improve.
Perfection is always an unobtainable goal.
It should be.
The glory is that fact that you're working at it.
It should be. It's, look, if as long as you reach self-actualization, what more could you ask for, So.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So a friend of mine, a man by the name of Justin Caparel, this has been reported by Fox News. Trump aide behind iconic garbage truck McDonald's moments, promoted to executive producer. Fox and Friends co-host discussed President-elect Trump's move to appoint Justin Caparel, who orchestrated Trump's viral moment in a garbage truck, and his brief shift at McDonald's as executive producer for major events and public appearances. So good job, Justin Caparel. Absolutely. I'm going to text him later. Good.
Oh, come on. That was my idea. That's my job.
Right. Yeah. Good. Right. That's pretty cool.
That is kind of cool. Congratulations to Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well deserved. So, yeah. So 2025 is upon us. I'm waiting to see Trump get into office and see what he's going to do. I'm hoping within those first few days, we're going to see, this revved up machine that has nitrous ready to go, and hopefully over the next 4 years basically dismantle the Democrats by doing everything that positive that he's promised to do, and at the end of this 4 years hand it off to somebody who's going to continue win after win after win, hopefully head us in the right direction. We'll see, but optimistic though.
I'm waiting for January 6th, man. I'm really waiting to see what Raskin's going to do to prevent Trump from being certified. He claimed he was going to stop it. He said the left was going to stop it. I'm just wondering, what do you got up your sleeve? Is that why we're attacking Houthis now? Is we getting involved into wars and conflicts now because they're trying to find an avenue?
Yeah, you need one House member, one Senate member to object. You go back to your chambers. It's for 1 hour to deliberate. Then you come back together and decide on those delegates. I think that's how it goes, right? But we'll see. Hopefully nobody breaks into the Capitol.
Oh, when they're trying to do the count you're talking about, and if they have stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. So you talked about Raskin. He would have to oppose it. You have a House member and a Senate member that has to oppose it, and then you go back to and you deliberate, if you will, in your respective chambers for about an hour, I think it is, and you come back together in a joint session and basically decide what the outcome is. Which way
I
you're going
believe
to vote.
the vice president herself, as president of the Senate, can raise questions and then ask for if there's anybody that agrees and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe so. Yeah, but I know whenever it comes to reading out the the electoral college, who they actually voted for, I think it's by state, whatever. And then of course a House member has to object, like I said. Then a Senate member also has to concur with that before anything happens, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. If you don't have at least one senator and one representative raise an objection to a state, then it doesn't go into deliberation. It's just a recorded, non-concurrence, and it really doesn't carry away. But if you get at least one in each of the bodies, then it must go for review and they have to debate it. So, for instance, in 2020 on January 6th, Pennsylvania's electoral votes, that should have been the case. Josh Hawley objects. Someone in the House objects. They go off into chambers, they discuss, they come back, and you know what? Pennsylvania cheated. So their votes are disallowed. That's what should have happened. And Biden still would have won the election. So anyway.
Right. Absolutely. And of course, there's not enough states or any votes that are out there that would change this outcome. I mean, Trump won hands down. He won the popular vote and won the electoral college hands down. Objecting to one state or two states, whatever, it's not going to do anything. And of course, it's not going to change because there's nothing there at this point. Last election, completely different. I wish people did not invade the Capitol. I think that would have been a different situation. We probably may have seen at least one, maybe two states thrown out. Don't know. But especially Pennsylvania should have been thrown out, like you said.
Well, I wish that the authorities and the Capitol Police and Muriel Bowser from the District of Columbia would have taken the situation seriously and would have actually put a deterrent law enforcement presence there. I have
Right.
video footage. The fact that there were no Jersey barriers, there were no bollards, there was no wire, there was nothing to prevent people from accessing the Capitol steps except police officers wearing bicycle helmets and carrying batons, no weapons. And that's what allowed this to happen. I'm pretty confident that's what they hoped for. I'm not saying that they engineered it, but they wanted it to happen. They intentionally left the Capitol unprotected. And who authorizes demonstrations on the same day on both the east and west side of the Capitol building? That's beyond stupid. Beyond stupid. So that's what they did. And obvious Muriel Bowser and Nancy Pelosi, who's responsible for the security on the Capitol grounds, they are responsible for what happened that day, and they should be investigated and I think criminally charged. I'm just saying.
Definitely malfeasance. You're asking a lot for somebody who puts out street signs. White supremacy kills black people. I mean, she perpetuates this stuff. Same thing now. They got these Trump signs up. They got take out the trash. It's a circle/bar over Trump with the red MAGA hat. And of course, the city itself is not declaring that they own those signs. They're declaring somebody else is putting them up. The fact of the matter, they're being allowed to stay up, apparently.
Right. Yeah. If somebody puts something up on, say public property like that without a permit, generally you should be taking it down, right? Your highway department, work department, whoever's supposed to be responsible for that. I know in my city here, if you put something up like that, it would be taken down if it's not an appropriate place.
Yeah. Well, it creates division, and that doesn't lead to the peaceful transfer of power, as the left likes to talk about.
Right.
Well, Muriel Bowser and her council in the DC are an illegitimate government that should be excised from the body politic. There you go.
Congress should take back the city.
Yeah, I agree. They shouldn't allow it to have self-government because it's proved incapable of governing itself. It's a perpetually in debt location, despite the largesse of the federal government, and it hires people to be counselors and mayors, the likes of Marion Barry. So,
yeah,
yep. I met him one time whenever he was back on the city council after all those years of being arrested, being a crackhead and all that. Just briefly outside of the old Everett, right across from the Treasury Building, I was like, "Holy cow!" He died a couple years after that, but yeah, I met him one time. Not impressed for sure.
No, not at all. Yep, exactly.
No. Yep. Met Jesse Jackson in Chicago outside of a restaurant as well, and just
excuse me. To you, that's the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Yeah.
Mail order, Reverend.
But it was funny as I was there with a friend of mine who is a lady, not a lady friend, but she was a nice looking lady. She does producing on news shows in Chicago, and she's like she just walked in, bypassed him like whatever, and I was like, why didn't you want to meet the Reverend? She's like, and she laid it out there how sick this guy is and his people and just the reputation they actually have in Chicago. I'm like, oh, okay, I got you. He's like, doesn't get reported on our channel, doesn't get reported nationally, nothing like that. Nobody wants to do anything negative toward Jesse.
So that's raises an interesting question since we're asking, 2024 and biggest winners and losers. We didn't say biggest winners, but biggest losers. What's the most underreported story, most ignored story of 2024? Do you think?
I think it was Biden's Alzheimer's, incoherence, whatever you want to call it.
I would agree.
I would agree.
That's a story that was ignored by the press when they knew full well that the man had diminished capacity.
Until they needed an excuse. They covered it up without a doubt. Yep.
So biggest winners for 2024, Todd?
I would say Donald Trump, and of course those people in his orbit. I think that's probably the biggest winners for sure. And of course, the people because their voice was actually heard this time around.
That's pretty good. That's where I was going with it. I would hive off that two extensions. I would say the biggest winner is Donald Trump, who survived the lawfare and the assassination attempts. So it doesn't matter. You can't top that. He's the Teflon Don for sure.
No.
And then the American people, because our long national nightmare will be relieved of that here in 19 days. And then the world, I think, is also the population of this planet have been saved. There's some salvation with these lunatics leaving office. And I think that beyond that, if we were going to take it a step further, lots of young Russian men and women will not die now, and Ukrainian men and women will not die because we won't be funding this idiotic conflict any longer. And Zelensky will not be able to carry on. He'll have to reach an agreement, which if he hadn't been such a jerk in the first place with Putin, he never would have found himself in this position. So I'm not justifying what Putin did. I'm just saying that Zelensky is the one that's responsible for this because he was obstinate and he got away with it. But anyway, I think that's the big winners for 2024, and I'm glad that we're all part of that. We're the people, and we will escape this national nightmare of stupidity, this lunacy. I mean, I'm very encouraged by Trump. He said on day one, I'll end this transgender lunacy in the military. He is going to sign executive order banning it. So that raises questions, Todd. You've got a genetically, biologically male running around with his block and tackle still intact, and wearing a skirt and earrings and dressing up as a woman and expecting airmen to address him as a woman. And what happens to him? Are they going to grandfather this? And I don't think it'll matter. I think Trump will say you got to go. So either he's going to have to, take the skirt off and take the earrings out and put his trousers back on, or he's going to have to get out of the Air Force, and he's not alone.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, that needs to be basically, to me, a mental disqualification for people in military service. I think it has to be, like you said, if you don't want to serve as the gender that you were actually assigned at birth, I'm sorry. Yeah. You got to go home because it's a distraction. It undermines good order and discipline. And it's just not normal. It's not normal, behavior. It's not normal to be able to have somebody like that in the military, to have a mental, basically disorder, if you will. I'm not making fun of them. It's sad, but you got to go.
Well, quite frankly, until just recently, transgenderism and gender dysphoria was classified as a mental illness. The fact it's called dysphoria means it is an illness. Why are we not treating it as an illness and have compassion for people? If you're ill, you can't serve. Simple as that. So it's not even a question for me to even deal with. Another big winner, we should say, is women and girls. We didn't say that. And that's because the return of Trump means that the protection of Title IX is coming back. Trump will sign an executive order banning transgenders from participating in any sport except that they were biologically born with. So that's a big winner for girls. I mean, Riley Gaines, who became famous over what happened to her because of Leah Thomas up there at Penn State, just a few miles from where I live. That's going to change her trajectory there. But Riley is, it's unfortunate for her what happened, how she was cheated out of her victories. But in some ways, it may have been the best thing that ever happened to her. She's become such a major advocate and a big celebrity because of that. And I have to say, she seems like a well-grounded young lady or young woman, and she is probably a good spokesman for dealing with this issue. So I'm glad that she's doing well, and I hope that that we get people the help they need and we get things back in order. It's not fair for us to pass Title IX for women's rights to ensure that the equal funding is spent for girls' sports in high school and college, only to have males, biological males, with physiological advantages jump into the sport and steal all the trophies, all the titles, all the scholarships. It's just morally bankrupt. And how the left can defend that is beyond comprehension. That is not compassion. That is not caring about people. That is facilitating people's delusions and giving unfair biological advantage to people based on your feelings. And that's simply not right.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead, John.
Which one's the trans on this show? This guy says, if you round eyes don't like trans, why do you have one on your show? We don't. I don't know what you're getting at there, but we definitely don't have that.
I think that idiot must be translucent.
Yeah.
Well, the courts issue a arrest warrant for South Korea's President Yoon when he imposed martial law back in December. So he's got an arrest warrant out for him right now.
Yeah, there's a problem with that. I'm not convinced that his declaration of martial law was illegal. The way that South Korean constitutional law is written, he's allowed to declare martial law, and the parliament must agree with it, so they get to vote on it. They voted on it, and they told him to rescind it, and he rescinded it. He didn't fight it. So I don't know what law he broke. This is it's spiteful from these legislators who are the ones who precipitated this crisis in the first place. He took the action, but it was because of the intransience and the behavior of the parliament that he did this. So, I mean, I think they're just covering their backside because they're feckless. They're useless. And he's become a scapegoat. He'll probably wind up spending the rest of life in jail or 10 years in jail or something like that when he committed no crimes. It's pretty sad.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And he, like you said, once the parliament made their vote, he lifted it, So kind of like Trump, whenever a court made the ruling in his last term of office, he stopped doing whatever. He abided by their decree, if you will. Didn't violate
Anytime a federal court put a stay in place, the Trump administration adhered to it. The Biden administration tried to actively go around it, particularly like with student loan forgiveness, which is morally bankrupt. But no, you're right, and that's what he did. Within hours, they convened the parliament and they voted and they had a majority, and they said they vote no martial law. So he ended it. If he tried to continue with martial law, then you could argue that he's an outlaw. But how do you go after a guy because he followed the rule of law? That just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just wondering how this is going to play out with this, with the bombing there in New Orleans, how this is going to play out. Especially now we got only 19 more days until President Trump's into office. At what point does this take a back seat? Or does it get amplified whenever Trump takes office? Or is there too many things going to be going on after the inauguration that this will take a back seat?
What do you mean, the investigation into it?
The investigation, if you will, and the focus on finding out the actual resolution as to what's the story here. You know what I mean? Is this something that's just going to get lost in the wash? Right now we're focused on it because we're in that limbo period. Biden's on his way out. Trump's on his way in. This is a major story. But at what point does it get pushed to the back burner?
I think it will be followed through an investigation. I don't think it's going to fail. To be honest with you, because this is pretty big. I mean, 10 people killed by a car running into a crowd of people, and it was a terrorist effort, and it included other actors, bad actors in it that we know of. We don't know who, but we know of. So I think this is a pretty big investigation for the FBI. I think the officer in charge is going to say, hey, this is, if nothing else, this is a great way to polish my badge and really look good in the field. You know what I'm saying? Not that that's what she's all about, but it's worth investigating, and I think it will be seen through.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. We know more about the man who lit the 57-year-old American on fire. We know more about him and what he did and what he's all about than we know about either the assassination attempts against Trump, which occurred 6-7 months ago now.
That's true.
So there could very well be a cover-up. I understand what you're saying, John, and I think if we get information, it's only because it's distraction from something else. The Federal Bureau of Investigation cannot be trusted. Kash Patel is going to have his hands full when he takes over that body. It is a den of vipers. And I'm tired of hearing people saying, well, the rank and file. No, not the rank and file, because the rank and file would have stood up. There would have been whistleblowers to come forward. There would have been something. The rank and file and the FBI are complicit in this. They're the ones doing the raids. They're the ones following illegal orders. They're the ones that violating the law on behalf of their bosses at the FBI and the Department of Justice. So it's going to take a house cleaning there. We see what happens. It's about diversity and equity, not about competence. When you are responsible for protecting the principles, whether it's the president, vice president, their family, the previous president, when you're responsible for that, that's an obligation that cannot be taken lightly. And the FBI has an obligation to take their responsibility seriously. Serial killers, transnational crime, terrorism, this is their responsibility. And they're not getting it done. Yeah. We are still waiting for answers. The FBI is involved, the Department of Homeland Security is involved, the local police in Butler involved, and that's actually the most forthcoming agency that we've had so far. We wouldn't know most of what we know if it wasn't for local police telling us these things. And, of course, the Secret Service, which is not so secret, and it provides lousy service.
Right. And had the federal government not tried to push a lot of this blame off on the Butler PA, they wouldn't have spoken up probably. They wouldn't have stood up for themselves.
It's a very real possibility they might have just gone along with it because, hey, we're just one of the small fish in this. We're not the principals. But when they were attacked and they were lied about, that's exactly what happened here. So, John, you may be right. We may very well be an investigation. It is a big deal. We got lots of big deals. It seems like the only time that the federal government wants to investigate something is when they can blame it on non-existent white supremacists. They can blame it on anti-Semitism that isn't explicitly tied to their pro-Palestinian bent or their pro-Arab bent or their pro-Muslim bent. That they ignore on campuses. That they ignore. But if they can get someone that's conservative who's anti-Semitic, well, then it's a full court press. And the other area where they spend all their time, other than lawfare against the president, is going after Christians. Christians. Anyone who opposes abortion is deemed a domestic terrorist. Parents, remember that? The FBI classified parents who opposed school board decisions as domestic terrorists.
Right.
What kind of planet are we living on? The Federal Bureau of Incompetence must be reformed or disbanded in the next 4 years. Simple as that.
I can't attest to the FBI, but having spoken with the United States Department of Transportation, the people pretty high up, I've been informed by them, and I already knew this, but it was pretty interesting to hear it out loud, is what you want must adhere to the president's agenda or nobody's going to work with you. And what you're talking about is when you got DEI agendas and stuff like that, they're trying to suit their agenda, and they're willing to bend laws, break laws, or ignore laws simply to push through their agenda.
John, what you say has historically been the case.
Mhm.
However, we have a historical example from January 2017 until January of 2021, in which the CIA, the FBI, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and every executive agency body actively undermined and betrayed the President of the United States repeatedly. We have people walking out of classified meetings, running to the podium to talk to the press, going, "Oh, the president called Haiti a crap hole country." That's classified information. You can't do that. These people actively worked against our nation, and none of them have been brought to account. I want retribution. I want people who betrayed our nation to pay a price for it. You don't get to collect a bureaucrat's check of $80,000 to $130,000 a year, sitting in a comfy seat in D.C. or in Alexandria, making a fortune at taxpayer expense while you're actively undermining and slow rolling the agenda of the United States. If you don't like that Donald Trump believes in America first, then go somewhere else and come back when somebody that agrees with you is there. You do not get to pick and choose the orders you follow. Todd and I had to follow every lawful order, whether we found it distasteful or not. And trust me, I was in incredibly high levels of responsibility with billions of dollars under my command and control and thousands of people and their lives, my responsibility. And so many times the Obama administration or the Bush administration made decisions that I disagreed with. But you know what? It was lawful. I had no choice. It wasn't a foreign policy I would agree with. It wasn't a domestic policy I would agree with, but I did it because it didn't violate the law or the Constitution. And these people took their views just like that moron. What the heck's his name? Vindman there?
Vindman, yeah.
That twit. He
and
thinks
his brother's a congressman now.
Yeah, he thinks his judgment supplants the president of the United States, a man who took a few $1 million and turned it into $10 billion, a man who has built incredible place all over the world, who has led people of all races and genders and made them all wealthy, healthy, and wise. This is unbelievable. Where do these people come from? The immigrants. Why is he even in office? He's a naturalized American who betrayed this country, who was in conversations with the Ukrainian military about being offered the Ministry of Defense position as a serving U.S. This guy should have been tried. Yep. He should have been tried. He should have been investigated. Instead, he's put up in front of the media like he's some hero, and he is and his idiot wife run around like they've been persecuted. When they've gotten their 15 minutes of fame, they're lucky they're not in prison. This is what's been going on in this country for far too long. Yeah. These bureaucrats, this deep state, this ability to slow roll and undermine the administration's foreign policies, domestic policy. That is why we're in the crapper. And that is why one of the reasons why Trump didn't get the election last time, because these people undermine his foreign policy. People like Fauci lying about COVID. People like Fauci lying about masks one way, then change their opinion and lying the other way and never telling the American people the truth. These people actively undermine the Trump administration, and the Wuhan flu is why Trump didn't stay in office. But you know what? We've suffered for 4 years. We're penniless because of inflation. We're miserable because the country has a cloud over it, and life has been horrible. But guess what? A new day is dawning. 2025 is here, 19 days, and it all begins. On January 20th, I have a feeling I'm going to spend 6 hours online that day. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the latest announcement. Donald Trump has released the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge for oil exploration. Yay! Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has rescinded transgenderism in the military. Yay! Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has rescinded 15,000 federal orders that are hampering business. Yay! All right, there we go. Donald Trump has just given Tom Homan $1 trillion to get rid of the criminal alien invaders. Yeah, that's going to be, all I do is win, 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 no matter what. I got money on my.
So to your point,
my hands go up and they stay there, and they stay there.
So to your point about deep state and such, we talked about that, where Biden is right now actively planting people within regulatory agencies to undermine Trump in his next.
He doesn't have to plant them; they're already there, man. They were there 6 years ago.
He's put more of them in there since. Oh, well, I think it's interesting, this guy GP that we were talking about earlier today, and I think GP must stand for Go Patriots. Says, "Don't tread on me." To Myra, says, "Don't tread on me. I have First Amendment rights." Dude, your First Amendment rights stop when you start insulting people. Your First Amendment rights stop when you violate other people's First Amendment rights. You can speak more elaborately and intelligently without having to be totally insulting, calling people snowflakes and nonsensical things like that. We certainly didn't do that to you.
I don't know which platform GP's on, but it's not on my platform. Otherwise, would have
It
been
might
banned
be
already.
tearing in off because I don't have YouTube, and I'm getting rid of YouTube because I got a strike last night because of the show we broadcast about vaccinations and stuff, and we were talking about spicy cough, as Chris likes to put it. But I am down for a week on YouTube, so I transferred over to Rumble, and we're going to start to see what Rumble's like because I'm done with censorship. I'm done with YouTube, and I'm done with
A
their
strike
nonsense.
for what show is that? How long ago was that show?
Last night, we aired the it was a pre-recorded show on Patriot Confederation, and we had a very nice, intelligent doctor on who's 86.
Oh, this wasn't a show that I was on because I
No,
mean,
no, no,
I'm
no.
always treading on thin ice with this show because I'm now putting on my original YouTube channel. But we haven't said anything that's going to get us in trouble here.
Right.
So,
Not yet.
No, but I mean, it was a great show. I think it was a lot of great information she brought forth, and I thought she was very wise, very intelligent. And
you got a strike.
And I got a strike as a result because I didn't take it down by the time the show ended till this afternoon. So I found that I got a strike on it. It was pretty quick. And it's like you said, Chris, you're just getting shadow banned there. They don't grow. You can try to grow it all you want to. It's not growing. And I think YouTube is just a crap platform anymore. You know, it was great before Google bought it out.
Yeah, before Google bought it out. That's true.
Yeah,
that's before it became part of the alphabet universe of evil. It was definitely a good platform. I would agree with that. But it's been a long time in coming. And what's sad about this is that under Google, this is a platform that allowed exploitation of children. It allowed criminal activity to take place. We've got famous instances, two YouTubers, huge content creators, who murdered their significant others. One guy murdered his ex-girlfriend. He recorded a gaming thing and let it play. It's one of the early successes on YouTube. And he went over and murdered his ex-girlfriend while people were chatting. And he used that as his alibi, only for the clever, forensic investigators to realize that guy had recorded his gaming ahead of time, didn't interact with his audience, and said that was kind of strange. And then we had the other one where the couple, they're traveling all over America. They're all excited. And he murdered her in Wyoming, left her body to rot at a roadside, at a campground, and then went to Florida. Then he disappeared. I don't know if he killed off himself or what happened, but yeah, I mean, YouTube has been full of nasty stuff. And you get people on who are PhDs, doctors in their field, and they state scientific fact, and you get censored. It's just wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's like idiocracy. It's coming to fruition. Really, quarter of the way through the 21st century right now, 2025, and people can't even use the devices, that they hold in their hands to play these video games or whatever, to look up nonsense, to look up some facts before they spew their BS or before they formulate their opinions on things. Look at a few facts before you formulate something. Don't just go off of what somebody said. Oh, I heard this, or they said that. I heard and they said are the two biggest liars of the world. Just use it for 10% of it. Use it to look something up before you spew off. That's just my thought.
But Todd, I heard there's a transgender host in this show.
Well, that might be you. I don't know. I mean,
Todd, it must be John because it's not me.
It must be the snowman behind Chris. He looks too happy.
Oh, that might be. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that is. It's a snowman. It's a snowman. He's a trans.
How do you know it's not a snow woman?
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it's a scarf. The scarf is a male scarf.
There's no hair on the head.
The top hat. The top hat.
How do you know my snowman doesn't have hair on his legs?
Underneath the rolls of snow, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, I didn't know you got a strike, but I'm not surprised. But yeah, it's something we were talking about today in my program. At the platform is still a platform full of censorship. So it's. Here's the problem. Section 230, Trump ignored it of the 96 Telecommunications Act. It must be a priority, and it's not being talked about now. No one in the incoming Trump administration is talking about it because they made their point about how he was harassed and how he was taken off of Twitter and how it's wrong. Well, Trump's back on all these platforms now, so nobody seems to give a crap about censorship to us. It was only when it's the elites getting censored that people pay attention. Right. So, I think that the Trump administration needs to cut its teeth into Section 230 of the 1996 Telecommunications Act and have it revised. Now, specifically what I'm talking about is when a website like Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, YouTube begins to act as an editor, then they're a publisher, and then they're liable for the content on their site. When they censor you with no legitimate reason, if you get censored and get shut down because you're promoting something dangerous, or you're broadcasting crime, or you're plotting a crime, or you're plotting to harm somebody, that's a criminal act. They have an obligation to take that down and block it. But when they simply have a difference of opinion or they interpret something, that makes them an editor. And when they're an editor, they no longer have the protections of Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act, which means that they can be sued for content just like the New York Times, just like the Washington Times, just like CNN. And the Covington kids can tell you all about that. And they're now multimillionaires thanks to CNN.
Yeah, you got it. Absolutely. Yeah. And what's funny is the kid was just sitting there smiling. They come over and he got in his face with his, hitting that little drum right in his face. And it's like, look how aggressive this kid is, with his smile.
Well, and what they did is they're like, oh, look, he's just a condescending white supremacist. They actually said stuff like that. Yeah. And the fake stolen valor Native American, and that's what he was, because he told people he was a Vietnam War veteran. He wasn't. Nope. He's a veteran of the Vietnam War era. He never went overseas. That's stolen valor, letting people believe that. You to correct them. You cannot let people believe things that aren't true. So they look at this, what he did to a Vietnam vet. The guy didn't do anything. The kid just stood there, was polite. He didn't know what to do. He just smiled. What else you can do? And so they turn it into something, and just how easily people believe the garbage. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Mississippi State, or not, what is it? There's a historically black college university in Mississippi. I think it's Mississippi Valley State or whatever, have been invited to perform at Trump's inauguration. They're being attacked by race hustling black racists. Yeah. How can they betray black people going to Trump's inauguration? A white supremacist and a racist.
Betraying the president of the United States.
But hold on.
Go ahead.
So what happens if Trump asked the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, which is almost entirely white, to come there? Oh, look, he's a white supremacist. So he invites a historically black college to perform, and they attack the band. I mean, you cannot win. The stupidity of these racists, these race hustling bigots. It's absolute nonsense here. Absolute nonsense. Stop harassing this man.
Yeah, they'll say Trump had the perfect opportunity to reach across and reach out to blacks, and he missed the opportunity during his inauguration. It's like, here he is reaching out, inviting you, saying, hey, come, let's be a part of this thing. Let's be together. Let's come together on this one day. You can hate me tomorrow, but let's work together today. You're always talking about it. And he does that, and all of a sudden they hate him for it. Come on. He's that you can never win.
That's exactly the point here. And these race hustlers, there's this guy on Twitter. He's just being a total jerk about this. He's a pastor. He claims he's a pastor. And he's just going off with this utter nonsense. It's absolutely disgraceful. I got to tell you that it's frustrating, but you can't win against this crowd. This is an evil bunch of people, and you can't win against them. So what you do is you work around them. You just, and you marginalize them. And, in a healthy society, people that act like that are fools, and we just ignore them, and we ostracize them. We don't associate with them. And that's what needs to happen. If you're offended by someone who's a bigot and racist, then just ostracize them. They're not invited to the party. They don't get to hang out with you. That's how you do it. Simple as that. But instead, people want to litigate this nonsense.
Yep. Yeah. You hate your enemies. How do you defeat your enemies? Live the good life. Make them resent you. Make them make the mistake. They'll kill themselves or destroy themselves, if you will.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be. We got next week. We'll be talking about more issues as we get closer to the inauguration. But we're about to run out of time tonight, there, Todd.
Yeah, absolutely. Final around the horn there, John. Go ahead.
Well, there's quite a bit we could have got into today. I'm kind of curious. Maybe next week we can get into TikTok and what's the deal now? Is it a national security threat, or is it not? Because it seems to me people are backpedaling on it.
Yeah. Now it's a good platform because I made a deal or something. I don't know. What do you think, Colonel?
I don't know. I just want to talk about something else, if it's okay, real quick before we run out of time.
Go ahead.
I see that at the New Year's celebration, they invited an artist who's a country performer known as Jelly Roll. And I just want to say that if Jelly Roll is your stage name, that's probably an indication of a poor lifestyle and eating habits. I'm just saying. But Jelly Roll apparently performed very poorly and he's being castigated. One of the comments on Twitter was that Jelly Roll would be the 7th best male singer at a small Baptist church in the middle of nowhere in Mississippi. Ouch.
All right. Is that the music playing us off?
It sure is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back next week, 7 to 9 Eastern, right here, WSM 59 AM, 95.3 FM. Take care until.